Kakadosh Bokato, we're continuing today with Daf Daled, which is 4, Masechet Shekalim. We're just going to start on Halacha Daled on the bottom again. Even though we did it yesterday, we'll do it again. Even though we just said that we're not going to take collaterals from women slaves. We're talking about Avadim Meshuchranim, right? And Ketanim, we're talking about Ivri, yeah? Uktanim and minors. Aval, however, though, im shaklu mekablim yadan. If they did give them a chazita shekel, we do accept it, which means we do not come and take collateral for them, forcing them to give them a chazita shekel. However, though, if they did give them a chazita shekel on their own accord, we accept it from them. Okay, that's what we learned. Anochli v'akuti sheshaklu. However, though, if it was a goy or a kuti, which is like the goyim, there's a whole machloket whether they were gerei ayirot, right, or which means that they were actually converted properly or not, and they wanted to give the machzit shekel, we do not accept it from them. We don't accept from them either any type of the birds, the kinim, which are basically for a zav, zava, or yoledet. Yoledet is the woman giving birth. Zav is a man that has seminal discharges when the membrane is dead. Zava is when she has a period when the not proper time, and therefore it's like a sickness, right? So we don't accept any types of korbanot from them, and not achataot vashamot, not sin offerings, right? Which is a sin offering or a guilt offering.
During the time that Zav was Zav.
No, at all, because it's a nochri and a kuti. Meaning a goy can never bring a chatat, a sin offering. He can never bring an asham, a guilt offering. He can never bring a ken, right? No, I'm going to move those. You can put all the things in. Yeah, right? So therefore, a goy cannot do all these things, okay? So that's just the way we should understand, okay? Perfect. Now the Gemara says, right? This is the general rule. Anything which is going to be done as a neder or nedava, which means it's a promise or a present, we accept it from them. But anything which is not as a present, which means like this: a goy or a kuti can only give something which is either a present or a promise, but it cannot be like something of an obligation. The second is like an obligation, a type of a sacrifice, which is an obligation. We do not accept it from them. That's also what it was mefurash through Ezra Sofer. Lo lachem velanu livnot bet Elokenu, which means that they wanted to come, and the goyim and all these things, they wanted to come and start helping us build the second Bet HaMikdash. And he went and he said, we cannot accept it. We have to build the second Bet HaMikdash. We cannot accept their help in building the second Bet HaMikdash. Okay, and this is where we start from today's daf, Talad Amud Aleph. And these people are obligated in a kalbon. That's the right. We're going to explain exactly what this is. Okay. And what does this mean exactly? So it says here like this. So we're talking about Leviim, Yisraelim, Gerim, converts, and Avadim Shuchranim, slaves which were freed. And now they are freed. So since all these people are obligated in Machatzit Shekel, they're also obligated in the kalbon. Now, again, remember, we're going to explain what does this mean exactly. What is this kalbon? Okay? But not the Kohanim, women, slaves, and children. Remember that the Kohanim, even though they were obligated in the Machatzit Shekel, we didn't come and we didn't take collaterals from them because of their kavod. It wasn't a kavod. We have to do extra kavod for the Kohanim because it says the kiddashto, a positive commandment to come and to make them, to give them kiddusha, right, to give them respect, and therefore we're not going to start taking collaterals from them. Again, they are obligated to Machatzit Shekel, not like they wanted to bring a proof that since they, if anything, what they bring, it would be completely burnt on the mizbeach. So the fact that they could eat from these things, so obviously they wanted to say that they were a patur. No, they're obligated to Machatzit Shekel, but we don't take collaterals from them. Okay, next. Hashokel al yad kohen al yad aisha al yad eved al yad katan patur. It says if somebody is going to take the Machatzit Shekel for a kohen, a woman, a slave, or a minor, right? Patur, he's going to be patur from the kalbon, right? Why? Because, right, it says over here, since anyway he's giving for somebody which is patur from the Machatzit Shekel, so therefore he doesn't have to give an extra kalbon for it. But if he did it for him and his friend, then he's going to be chayav kalbon echad. So he's going to be chayav one kalbon for himself, but not for the one which was exempt. Okay. So he says here, because since every single person is giving a chetzi shekel, so between both of them, it's only going to be one kalbon. Okay? And kalbon, we're going to explain it now, I think. If I remember correctly, I think now we're going to explain what is the kalbon. Or unless maybe we already explained it and we didn't see it. It says over here, According to the Tanakama, the chiyuv of kalbon, it says here was shekulam hiyu zokukin matbeot shel chetzi shekel kedei לקיים את חובתם, ואילו מטבעות של שקל שלם היו מצויים יותר ביד כל אחד. ולפיכך היה מצוי שהיו באים עם מטבע של שקל וצריכו להחליפו לשני מטבעות של חצי שקל. צריך לתת שכר פריטה עבור מה שמפורט על השולחנים, which means like that, that's the kalbon, which means like this. The kalbon is that in the olden days, nowadays, the money changers, they don't make money as a charge of changing the money. They make the money on the exchange. Correct? That means they're not giving you the exact exchange. They're coming and they're giving you an extra, and that's where they're making their money. In the olden days, they gave you the exact amount, but they still needed to make a parnasa. So their parnasa was a fee. Yeah, a fee. So here, everyone needed half shekels. Nobody had half shekels. Everyone had the shekel shalem. Everyone had full shekels. So therefore, they used to come to the money changer. They wanted to change it. So they would have to give a kalbon in order to change the money. That money is anybody that's obligated in Masechet shekel, so he had to pay for the kalbon. Okay. However, though, if you're going to take it from a woman or a minor, whatever, which is a katan or a kohen, since they were patur, right? So it says here they're patur from the kalbon because since they are patur from Masechet shekel, so therefore you don't have to give the kalbon as well. Now, if he's two people doing it, so there's only one kalbon, meaning if I'm going to give it for me and for you, so therefore I have one shekel and I have to split it to two chetzi shekel, so I have to pay one kalbon, not two kalbons. If we're doing it separately, it's two kalbons, right? Because each one is a separate individual. But if we're doing it in one shot, so then it's only one fee. It's like one transaction, so one fee. Two transactions, two fees. That's the way it is. Okay? Right, very good. Now, says the Gemara, Rabbi Meir argues, and he says, no, even if I'm doing it with you, right, me and you, which are two people together, you're still obligated to do shne kalbonot, two different kalbonot. Okay? Fine. Hanoten sela v'notel shekel, chayav shne kulbanot. If somebody is going to put a sela, okay, which is for the Masechet shekel, and he's going to take a shekel, so he's obligated in two kulbanot. So you're taking a sela and you're putting Masechet shekel, so you're going to take the extra shekel, right? You're obligated in two different kulbanot. So here it explains, okay, the Gemara is going to speak about exactly what we're talking about, okay, but because obviously the sela is going to be more than that. It says here, sela hainu shekel shalem shel Torah. Okay, so the sela is a full shekel, so he's going to take the shekel ode. He's going to be chayav in two kulbanot here. Okay, hashokel al yedei ani. Yeah, so he says over here like this: if somebody is going to be shokel through an ani, v'al yad shecheno v'al yad ben iro, so he's going to do it through an ani, through a shechen or ben iro, right? So basically, whether it's going to be for an ani, a poor person, or a neighbor, or somebody in the city, okay, that obviously they're obligated. Okay, so he's giving for each one a shekel shalem shel Torah, and he's getting a half a shekel in return. So he's going to be patur from the kalbon because the chachamim do not obligate him a kalbon when they're not giving it for themselves. It's only when you're going to give it, meaning if somebody else is giving to you as a present, you don't have to give a kalbon. Meaning if I'm going to give you a present, we didn't obligate you to pay the kalbon. It was like, like you're giving a present to someone, so then we exempted you from it. Okay? However, though, if you lent them the money, then you are chayav. Meaning if you give it to them as a present, we didn't obligate you as a kalbon. But if you give it as a loan, we did obligate you in the kalbon. Ha'achina shutafin. When you have brothers that they are partners in a Yerusha, in a inheritance that came from their father, shechayavim bekalbon, that they're obligated in a kalbon, turim maaser be'emah. So if they're going to be chayavim in a kalbon, so then what's going to happen is that they're going to be paturim maaser be'emah. Okay, but when they're going to be chayavim maaser be'emah, they're going to be paturim from the kalbon. The Gemara is going to explain why. Right, like what happens? When do you have your shim that they're going to be obligated maaser be'emah, exempt from maaser be'emah? What's the case? Obviously, we're going to have to explain in the Gemara. Okay, the kama u kalbon. How much is the kalbon? Ma'a kesef. One ma'a kesef. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. And according to Chachamim, it's chetzi ma'a. So here it says here ma'a is a shishit of a dinar, and a dinar is half a shekel. So it's like 1/6
of a shekel
of a 1/6 of a half a shekel of a chetzi shekel.
12.
So it's like exactly. Yeah. Okay. So basically, you're giving a chetzi shekel, right? So it's going to be a 6 of that. So let's say, I don't know, it's going to be $1, so it's going to be 12 cents. No, that's a 6. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Says the Gemara.
So it's 12%.
Is it 12? Actually, I'm trying to think. 1/6. How much is 1/6? It's 12 or 7? 1/5 is 20%. So 1/6, how much is?
16.66.
666. That's what it was.
66.
It was 12, yeah. 16.666. Exactly. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's a lot. Okay, fine. Very good. Chazak uruch, Simon. We're going to start now the Gemara. Okay, the Gemara says, Daled Amud Aleph, the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Afal Pi Shamru, even though we just said Em Mashkinim, right, for the Ktanim and everything, but we do accept it from the Ktanim and from the women and everything. Halit Boa and Tovim. So you see from here that we're not going to be Tovea, which means we're not going to ask for the money. Hacha, but here, Atamar, you just said Tovim, that you do ask for the money. Hacha Atamar, and here you're saying En Tovim. So what's going on exactly? Basically, the question of the Gemara is do you say that we do ask for the Machatzit shekel, or we don't ask at all? Okay, because if you're just going to tell me that Em Mashkirin just means that you don't take a collateral, but you do ask for it. Here it's mashma, you don't ask for it at all. So what is it? Is it you ask, but you just don't take a collateral, or you don't even ask for the Chtanim? So says the Gemara, answers the Gemara, if the boy already completed 13 years, which means he already has 2 pubic hairs, so therefore he's like a man, so therefore you're going to ask from it, but you're not going to take a collateral. But if he didn't bring the 2 hairs, so then you don't even ask. Hanochri v'akuti, we're back in the Mishnah where it says about a nochri and a Amar Rebbe Ba. Says Rebbe Ba. Tiftor keman Amar. Why don't we just say that kuti is like a nochri? Right? What does that mean? A kuti is exactly like a nochri. That means even though we just said beforehand that a kuti was a machloket, whether they were gerayot or geremet, which means that they really convert for the good motives or not, right? So that means this, by the way, started already many, many years ago. It didn't start from nowadays. You understand? Right? The concept of conversions, whether it was a genuine conversion or not conversion, this already happened, thousands of years ago. So why don't we just say that a kuti is like a nochri? And that's it. A kuti is like a goy. The palgin kuti kenochri divre Rebbe, because that's a machloket of the Tanaim. Rebbe holds a kuti is like a goy. And Rashba Rabbi Shmuel says, kuti is like a Yisrael, lechol davar. So Amar Rabbi Lazar says, Rabbi Lazar, no. Matnita benochrim. Our Mishnah is only talking about goyim. Habekutim lo, but we're not talking about goyim, which means we're not talking about kutim, which means that we wanted just to say that our Mishnah is telling you mifurash that a kuti is like a goy. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Lazar, no. And did you realize it's Rabbi Lazar?
Why that?
Yeah, it's not Rabbi Elazar. Remember that all the names are different in Yerushalmi. All the Yerushalmi like Lazar. A lot of people say Lazar. They don't say Elazar. Lazar. Yeah, like everything's very, very short. Rabbi Muna, Rabbi Yosa, said Rabbi Yoseh. Right, Yosa, there's a lot of them we were just saying, but everything in the Yerushalmi was different. It was like a different language. There was a lot of like slang and everything. What?
They say that they call them kuti just not to make him feel bad or something like
yeah,
that.
but you have to remember that the kutim were completely different. There were certain things that the kutim they did, they were complete. No, it's not a regular get. That's why. They became their own cult. It was like their own cult, and that's the whole thing. That it wasn't just stam like a get. If you have a person that just converts, that's one thing. But here it wasn't the same thing.
No, they converted and then
they converted, right? But then they went back. They became kutim. So there was a whole thing that they found by the kutim that they found like an avodah zarah. There was a given on that. Right? There was a whole thing here. But just here it just says Rabbi Lazar comes and says that our Mishnah is talking about nochrim, but kutim there's no problem.
And honestly, if we accepted them as a kerim, we should not just take them away like this.
No, but that's the entire question. The entire question is that maybe from the beginning they weren't, it wasn't genuine, so therefore we don't accept them from the beginning. And that's why it was like
already take them to the mikveh, we already took them to that.
Okay, that's the whole question. Yeah, that's the whole question. Yeah. No, I'm saying the truth is it's not that simple, because you do see that they did accept certain times, and there are certain times in the generations that they didn't accept Gerim at all. Shlomo Melech, they didn't accept Gerim during that time. Because obviously, if he was the king of the world, I'm saying everyone wants to convert.
Right.
So it wasn't because you wanted to be Jewish, it was just because you wanted to be part of the Jewish nation. So they didn't accept it. Yeah, exactly. The VIP club. So they didn't accept conversions then. There were certain times in Jewish history that they just didn't accept it. You understand? Fine. Vitani Ken. Yeah. And we also learned in a Braita, Adam. What does Adam come? Lerabot et gerim. Whenever it says here Adam comes to include the gerim. Right? What does it mean? Adam ki akrim mikem. That was last week's parasha. Mamash, we just read it. In Vayikra. Yeah? So it says, what does it mean? Adam lerabot et gerim. Mikem. Adam ki akrim mikem. Ma ze mikem? Leotzi et mumarim. To exclude the mumar. A mumar is somebody that's a Jew that he doesn't keep the Torah mitzvot. So that's right. That means he basically, from this pasuk we see, gerim are allowed to bring korbanot, but mumar cannot. So therefore, according to the Deah that kutim are geremet, they're allowed to bring korbanot. Okay, so it all depends. Yeah, so they're allowed to. So says the Gemara, matnitim pliga Rabbi Lazar. So obviously our Mishnah argues on Rabbi Lazar. But they mekablim yadam kinei zavim zavot kinei yodov. Yesh kinei zavim zavot benochrim. Says what? Does it exist a concept of kinei zavim and zavot for nochrim? Obviously there was talking about kutim, not the nochrim. So says the Gemara, no, you're right. Reisha is the nochrim. right? Which means the Reisha, which is talking about there, right, was talking about the Nochrim. Because it says the Nochri that they did the Masechet Shekel, they don't accept it. But the Seifa, which is talking about the Kinim and everything, that's the Kutim. That's not the Nochrim. Okay? Kenhu. So if it's like that, Reisha b'Nochrim v'Seifa b'Kutim, this is what? The Reisha is only Nochrim and the Seifa is only Kutim. It doesn't sound good. Okay? But that's what you have to actually say then. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, but Techila at the beginning, en mekablim mehen, lo davar mesiyam v'lo b'davar sheno mesiyam. At the beginning, when they were building the Bet HaMikdash, we wouldn't accept from the goyim not something specific or not something, right? So here it says something like which is nikar v'nideh be'en, which means you could actually see it, or davar sheno mesuyam, like for example something which is not specified. V'sof at the end, mekablim en davar sheno mesuyam, you could accept something which is not going to be specific or it's not going to be specified. So therefore, you could actually accept it from them at the end. Towards the end. What does it mean here at the sof? After the Bet HaMikdash was already, that means for Bedek Habayit, which means for the building process, don't accept it. But for the actual Bedek Habayit, which is the upkeep, right, that you could accept it. Rabban Shimon Lakish Omer, Rabban Shimon Lakish says, Ben Batchila Ben Sof, whether it's at the beginning or the end, we don't accept from the nothing which is Misyam or not something which is not Misyam. We don't accept it. So says the Gemara, obviously our Mishnah is against Rav Yochanan, because it says, we are not going to accept from the Goyim Hekdesh or Nedava for Bedek Habayit. So therefore here you see Mefurash, that even for Bedek Habayit, you're not going to accept from them. So Petorla ben Batchila ben Besof Ulvad Davar Shemesuyam, Petorla Batchila Sheafilu Ma'otav Yolechem Yam HaMelach. He says, no. Really, Be'emet, you have to say that you have to explain the bright that was talking about, whether it's at the beginning or the end. Uvilvad, right, davar mesuyam, but it has to be something which is mesuyam, which means that Rabbi Yochanan says we don't accept from them. Petorla batchila, but if it's going to be at the beginning of the binyan Bet HaMikdash, shafilu ma'otav, that even his money, yolichem Yam HaMelach, you have to throw it into the Yam HaMelach. That's a certain concept. Yeah, to dissolve. That means we want to throw it away. We don't want it. You understand? And by the way, you should know that's even until today. Until today, if a goy is going to come and give us, even if it is that we will accept it, we'll use it for certain things, but not for everything. Right? You understand? We're going to use it for the.
Yes.
Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish comes and he says, none of the beginning of the Bet HaMikdash or the building of the Bet HaMikdash or at the end, we're not going to accept from them. Nothing. Obviously, our Mishnah is also arguing with Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Because we learned in the Mishnah in Rechina, kol shavin shehen nodrim and nidarim. They're allowed to give a neder or nidava. That's what we said. According to everybody, a goy could give a neder and nidava, which is a present or a gift. So says the Gemara, Petorla Ola. We're talking about an Ola, which means that they could only come and they could give a Korban Ola, burnt offering, according to everybody they could give, but not from like a not stam to the Bedek Habayit or whatever it is, according to this. So Nicha Shenodrin Ola, Nidarin Ola, says 1 second, but that you can make a Neder Ola, but what? Nidarin Ola? What does that mean? If Shal Lefaresh Nidarin, the Kavanah is Nidarin Lavi Ola, because that means, right, the Nochri for sure is not going to listen to the Yisrael to bring an Ola from his neder, from his property. So says the Gemara, Ela kashamar Yisrael, but rather when the Jew says, Hare alai ola, that it's going to be on me an ola. Shema nochri, and the goy heard, Amar masha amar zeh alai. Whatever this Jew said it's going to be on me. Okay, that's what he says. That means he basically heard the Jew saying it. Once you know what? Well, the Jew said it's going to be on me. And that's what he says, alai, it's going to be on me. So that's going to be like a neder. Okay? Fine. He says, what? You don't bring a wine libation with olah? Meaning when the goy is already going to bring an olah, you don't bring a wine libation with it? He says, what? The motar nesachim, the leftovers of the nesachim, it's not for the kli sharet. So nimsa, it comes out. Mevi davar shenu mesuyam, that he could bring the davar shenu mesuyam, but if he could bring the wine libation with the korban olah, so he's bringing it. So says the Gemara, Hativ Rabbi Yosef bar Rabbi Munun, answers Rabbi Yosef bar Rabbi Munun. So here's Hativ, the Tav and Shin is interchangeable, so it's like Meshiv. He answered Rabbi Yosef bar Rabbi Munun, Hatarim, we learned in the Mishnah, Nenechim ve'orchim, lo lebedek habayit inun, right? So which means that they are going to come make a neder, but not for the bedek habayit. Hechma de'atamar taman, just like we said over there, l'shamayim u'mitkavenu me'elehen hem ba'in lebedek habayit, which means that at the beginning we're going to say that just like you have to say over there that a nochri is going to be noder a neder avarachin to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and not for the bedek habayit, and then me'alehen on its own it goes to the bedek habayit, which means like this: they're giving it to Hashem. After it already went to Hashem, now it goes to bedek habayit. So too, it's going to be here. He's just giving it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not for bedek habayit. And then, right, ume'alehen daled amubet 4b. And on their own, which means like this: he's not giving it specifically for the upkeep or renovations of the Bet HaMikdash. He's giving it for Hashem, in general, for Hashem. Afterwards, mimela, which means on its own, it goes to the Bet HaMikdash. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish patala lo lachem velo lanu livno bayit lelokenu. So he says that he actually went and he learned it from the pasuk that we are not supposed to build a Bet Hamikdash with the goyim, that it has to be with us by ourselves. Rav Chizkiah says, Rabbi Simon sha'al, Rabbi Simon came and he asked the Bet Midrash, Me'ata en mekablim mehen lamatamayim ulchumot ha'ir migdalotea, right? Al Shem v'lachem en chelek. Says, what? We're not going to accept from them also for any irrigation canals or the walls of the city of Jerusalem or the towers because of the pasuk v'lachem en lanu chelek, which means just like we learned from the Ezra when he said to do with that you're not allowed to accept from them. So therefore, we're not going to come and we're not going to accept for all these other things as well. Right? That means, wow, that means it comes out that they're not going to accept it for all these things. Yeah? That means they're going to come, they're going to start donating for the A, B. No. Yeah? Fine. Next, we skip out the brackets, remember. So we go straight to Maitama.
Rabbi Meir.
Yeah, Maitama the Rabbi Meir. So we're going back. If you remember, we said that what happens if I do it for two people for one, 2 for 1? Do we pay for 1 kalbon, right? Or we have to pay 2 kalbonot? So it was a machloket of Rabbi Meir and a Tanakama. So Maitama the Rabbi Meir, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Meir? Right, where it says we're on 4b, yeah, we skipped out the brackets. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Meir that he says that you're obligated to give 2 kalbonot? Tamar Rabbi Meir, it says Rabbi Meir, kashem sheshiklo Torah, ka kalbonot Torah. Just like the shekel that a person is obligated to give comes from the Torah, so too the kalbon, right? He has to give a mina Torah, meaning it's not stam takana chachamim. It's an obligation from the Torah to give with the machatzit shekel the kalbon. So kasav Rabbi Meir, so Rabbi Meir holds benoten shiklo shalem, which means that you have to actually give a sela, which is a shekel, a shalem shel Torah, right, for him and his friend. Shehu chayav shnei kalbonot. So therefore, you're obligated to give 2 kalbonot. There's 1 kalbon on every single half a shekel, which means it's mamash, it's mina Torah. It's not just stam takana chachamim because you have to pay for the service fee. Nowadays they started doing it a lot with credit cards. You pay with credit card, you have to pay the service fee. I don't know, 3%, whatever it is. Yeah, it's I understand, but that's just the way that it is. Okay. So he says here, my time Rabbi Meir. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Meir? Okay, fine. So he says here, Damar Rabbi Meir, says Rabbi Meir, Kemin matbea shel esh hotzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitach zeh hakavod ve'elo Moshe. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu took out a matbea shel esh, a fiery type of a coin, and he showed it to from underneath the kisei hakavod, and he showed it to Moshe Rabbeinu. And he said, Zeh yitenu, kazeh yitenu, this exact same thing. This is what you're going to be giving it out. So you see from here that it was like the mishkal of machatzit shekel that was during the day of Moshe. So therefore, he says, since sometimes they're a little bit lacking, so for mina Torah, you have to add on a little bit in order that it should always be enough. So therefore, even though you're giving a machatzit shekel, sometimes the machatzit shekel is not exactly whole, right? Meaning it's lacking. Remember, the olden days, it was actually worth the amount that it is. Nowadays, it's actually the opposite. I think recently what they did is that they were taking all the, I think it was the pennies or the nickels, and they were melting it, and then they were selling it, and it was actually even worth more than the actual, you understand? Meaning that the metal, pennies. So it was worth more than the actual currency, the value, you understand? But in the olden days, the actual value was the value, that was the value, you understand? So therefore, sometimes what? Yeah, for electronics, huh? So he says that the concept is that the actual value was there. So therefore, sometimes it's lacking in weight or things like that. So therefore, you always have to give a little bit more to make sure that you're good with the value. Okay, Natan Sela, litol shekel chayav shekel. So if you're going to give a sela in order to take a shekel in return, so you're going to be obligated in 2 kulbanot. So Amar Rabbi Lazar says Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Meir. This is like Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir Amar Rabbi Meir says, Echad shekel shehu noten ve'echad ledivrei Torah. Doesn't matter whether you need 2 kulbanot. One of them for the shekel that you're taking, and one of them for the Torah, right? Which means that zayitunu for the machzid shekel. The Tanya was learned in the Braita. Elu chayvim bekalbon. These people are obligated in kalbon. Kalbon echad. Rabbi Meir omer. Rabbi Meir says shnei kalbonot. That's 2 kalbonot. Okay. But Rav said divra koli. This is not only according to Rabbi Meir. This is according to everybody. Right? Why? Echad shekel shu noten ve'echad shekel shu notel, because it's 2. He's splitting money, meaning that sometimes here, right, we do it for free. You give us a $20 bill, we give you the ones. Yeah, you go to Baba Chaki, he gives it to you for free. In the olden days, right, the fact that you're getting one back and then you exchange, you would also have to pay double. Yeah, so imagine, Baba Chaki, you heard every single time somebody wants to change, you come, you take 2. You understand? 2 kurbanot. One for the giving and one for the taking. You understand? That's how they would do it. Okay? Fine. Al date de Rav, right, according to Shitat Rav, shlosha kurbanot inun. There's actually going to be 3. Okay, according to Rabbi Meir. Why? Because Rav was only talking about according to Tanakama, noten sel v'noten shekel is going to be 2. So it comes out according to Rabbi Meir. In that case, you're obligated 3. 2 of them for the 2 chatzeh shkalim, and one of them midoraita to add on. Okay, so that's why. Because basically, it's 2 for the 2 half shkalim. Okay, and then it's going to be the extra one. Fine. Ata Rabbi Yirmiyah, right? Comes Rabbi Yirmiyah, and he said Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak in the name of Rav, Shosha Kurbanot Yineh. There's going to be three according to Shtat Rabbi. Echad shekel shu noten, one of them that he's giving to the K'desh. Echad shu noten, one of them that he's taking back for himself. Ve'echad lidvar Torah, one of them to make sure that he has the full shekel. Okay, so that's what it's going to be three. Okay, now we're going back to the Gemara where the Gemara spoke about, where the Mishnah spoke about the Achin Shutfin, the brothers that their partnerships. That means they basically got a Yerusha. Shechayvim Kabon Turim Maaser Bema. So we said that if they're going to be chayavim in the kabon, they're going to be patur from Maaser Bema. There we're talking about that they divided the property and then they became partners again, meaning they received an inheritance, they made the chalukah, they split it up, and then they put it back together in the same
partnership.
Pot. Yeah, the partnership again.
So then they have to pay.
So then they have to pay. Okay, so that's what it says here. In that case, they are not shutafim because of Yerusha anymore, because they already divided the Yerusha. But rather, they're like two strangers that are coming together to do a shutafut, and therefore the halacha is that they have to give a sela with shutafut for the machzit shekel of both of them. They have to give a kalbon echad. Okay, but to do with maaser bema, since it's written asher lecha, lecha means it has to be yours by yourself, and therefore since you're a partnership, so you're not a partnership anymore, and therefore you're going to be patur from maaser bema. However, though chayvim maaser bema pturim kalbon, if you're going to be chayav maaser bema, you're going to be patur from the kalbon. B'shelo chalku, if they just received the Yerusha. So the fact that they receive the Yerusha, they're going to be patur from the kalbon because it's all one entity, and they're going to be chayav in maaser bema because it's all you. Everyone's together in one entity. So therefore, you're going to be chayav in maaser bema, but patur from the kalbon. Amar Rabbi Lazar, says Rabbi Lazar, that's only if they went and they started dividing the goats between the kids between the taish in English. The chivo, ¿cómo se llama?
Yeah, yes.
The goat, no?
Yes.
Yeah, the goat. Okay.
Male goat.
Male goat and the kids, right? The young kids, right? The young goats.
Ram.
Okay. So he says here, Gedayim keneged Yashim and Yashim keneged Gedayim, which means one of the brothers took his chelek in a gedi, the other one took it in taish. Okay, was during the time in the Yerusha, each one took half of everything. Okay. But if they did exactly one gedi keneged another gedi, one taish keneged another taish, chalku u chelko misha rishona. So then that's already considered that brera. We say that from the beginning they already separated it, and therefore it's considered there was batla the Yerusha. That means there's no more Yerusha anymore, and therefore when they come back together, it's like a new entity. Okay, and therefore they're going to be obligated to maaser bema.
Maaser behema, but usually maaser behema we don't give on tayashim.
No, you're right. But maaser behema. Hold on 1 second.
You don't give offering of tayash to Bet HaMikdash because you don't make makri bet tayash. Anyway, I'm just.
Hold on 1 second. So now says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan says, "Afilu chalku gedim kenegedim v'tashim kenegedim klekochot hen." They're considered like they just purchased it. Tuturim in a maaser, they're going to be patur for maaser. Because remember, maaser is only going to be obligated when it's 100% yours. If it's going to be a partnership, there's no maaser. Kaid tzadin and taman, just like we learned over there in Bechorot, alakuach l'shenitan l'matana patur maaser bema. Anything which is going to be purchased or going to be given as a present, it's going to be patur from maaser bema. Rabbi Chia amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Abaye. Rabbi Chia said that Rabbi Yirmiyah asked the following question: "V'lama let nan amrin." Why don't we just say sometimes they're going to be obligated in both, in the kalbon and also maaser bema. Says here Amud Aleph 5A1. And sometimes they're going to be exempt in both of them. How? How does this work? Right? Again, we skip out the brackets. If they divided only the properties, right, and then they became shutafim again, but they never divided the animals at all. And they're going to be obligated in both. Right? Why? Because since at the end of the day, they already divided the money. So now it's batel, the concept of tfusat habayit, which means that they already divided the Yerusha, even though they didn't divide the animals. But now they became, then they put everything back into the pot. So they're going to be obligated in maaser bema because since they didn't divide the animals, but they're still considered tfusat habayit. But they're not going to be shutafut, right? Elakeshut shel ha'av, which is an individual. Chilku bema, but if they only divided the animals and not the properties, so then they're going to be patur also from the kalbon and also from the maaser bema. So Rabbi Mana says, Rabbi Mina, hada tamar, that's what you just said, b'shelo hayta bema rov, where the erech of the behemot was not rov keneged all the Yerusha. Right? Exactly. That means when you're talking about proportion, it wasn't going to be the majority. But if the majority was the animals, that is the ikar of the nechasim and the properties. Okay, Rabbi Yavin Amar, Rabbi Yavin says, Rabbi Shammai Bai, Rabbi Shammai asked, apotro min kalbon, because you came and you made a person, right, when we're talking about one, you're going to say that it's going to be patur from the kalbon. Amalei, so he comes and he says, la shanyahi, right, what are we talking about? Shehu noten sela achat shlema, that we're talking about that he put one sela. Me'ata afilu chalku v'chazru shutfu peturim min kalbon. That we said that even if they're going to divide and they're going to divide it and then put everything back again, peturim min kalbon. We're going to be patur from the kalbon. And we learned in the Mishnah, chayvin bekalbon u'pturim maaser bema, that they're going to be patur chayvin in the kalbon and they're going to be patur from maaser bema. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Ba b'shem Abba bar Ravuna, hi shnei achim she'ashu et avihen, hi shnei gisim she'ashu et chamihen. The exact same halacha, right? Really, we're talking about two brothers that they inherit from the father. Is the same name, two brother-in-laws that they inherit the father-in-law, which means there's no difference. So therefore, he says over here, so they're going to be considered like two zarim, two strangers that they're coming in the same partnership. So the same thing, when you have two brothers that they're coming and they're going to
pay,
take it,
those have to pay.
Exactly. So le'echan hayu kalbonot noflim. Where did the kalbonot go to? Because until now we spoke about you're obligated to give a kalbon. Where did this kalbon go to? So says the Gemara, Rabbi Min says the Shekalim, the same place, right? That means he used to go to the same place. Rabbi Lazar said no, lenedava. He used to go for an olat nedava for the tzibur. Rabbi Shimon Shazuri Omer rikua zahav. They used to make the tasim dakim of zahav, like golden plates from it. The tzipui lebek kodesh kodashim. They used to make like a golden plate to the kodesh kodashim. Ben Azai says the money changers used to take it. Okay, bischaran, that was their wages. Yeshomim, some people say lotzad drachim in order to come and to fix the different paths. Hadran alach. Gracias. Hadran alach.